I feel very confident in saying, and I'm someone who doesn't like hyperbole, that this is probably the most significant transformational technology change in human history. And the pace of the change is not abated.
Yeah.
You look at, if you follow the news around AI and how quickly these things are developing, we are, going to see some incredible transformations in, I think, even less than 10 years. If we go back, for standing here 10 years from now and probably reviewing this conversation, there's probably a lot of things we're going to laugh about.
Right.
We're going through something absolutely historic.
Technologies across the board are growing exponentially.
It's a disruption that's going to completely redefine the way businesses compete.
In the next decade, we're going to lose 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies.
The exponential growth of computing is continuing.
AI is nowhere near its full potential.
Whether you like it or not, that the future cannot be stopped by anyone.
Welcome back to the Future Tech and Foresight podcast. I'm your AI host, Mark Verbankov's deepfake avatar, and this is episode number 218. AI adoption is accelerating across industries, but many organizations are still struggling to translate experimentation into real business value. In this episode, the conversation examines how companies first encounter AI, often through executive pressure or grassroots experimentation, and why unclear goals and poor preparation can stall progress. The discussion highlights the growing gap between early adopters and organizations that remain uncertain about where AI truly fits into their operations. A central theme of the episode is intentional AI integration. Rather than deploying tools in isolation, organizations must align AI initiatives with real business challenges, clean and govern their data, and embed AI into everyday workflows. The conversation explores common pitfalls such as shadow AI, employee resistance, and fragmented systems, while emphasizing that AI works best as a human multiplier, not a replacement for people. Looking ahead, the episode outlines how AI adoption will evolve over the next 5 to 10 years, with centralized AI interfaces, proprietary systems, and stronger data foundations becoming standard. The discussion concludes by underscoring the importance of internal ownership, having dedicated individuals who champion AI strategy, data hygiene, and measurable outcomes to ensure AI delivers long-term sustainable impact. Now, a little bit about today's guest. Jim Spignardo is the Director of Cloud Strategy and AI Enablement at ProArch, a global IT services and consulting firm. With over 25 years in IT, Jim's journey spans network engineering, cloud management, cybersecurity, and strategic consulting. What drives him is helping organizations cut through the noise and deliver real, measurable business outcomes. At ProArch, Jim leads initiatives that modernize infrastructure, empower teams, and maximize ROI on Microsoft technologies. He's worked with a diverse range of clients, from nonprofits to global enterprises, guiding them through complex cloud transformations. As ProArch's internal champion for Microsoft 365 Copilot, Jim developed a proven AI adoption playbook that turns AI hype into practical workflows that generate ongoing returns. But Jim knows technology isn't just about systems, it's about people. He advises CIOs and IT leaders on aligning IT with business, goals, communicating value clearly, and preparing organizations for what's next.
Perfect. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today to talk about something that has been touched on the podcast a number of times. It seems like everybody's interested in artificial intelligence, so great to have you come on and share your insights.
It's my pleasure, Mark.
So, how in the world did you get involved in the world of AI? Was it a certain event, or was it just kind of an organic, natural process?
It's probably more organic. We, as a company, started playing around with ChatGPT from the very early beginnings. I think it was November of 22.
Yep.
I took to it pretty quickly. I've always had a penchant for new technology, something that I really, I've always loved to kind of get my hands into these things. And I knew this time was kind of different. At the time, I was actually leading our cloud infrastructure group at ProArch, the company I worked for. And over time, we're a Microsoft partner, and we knew that Copilot was on the horizon. This is something our customers were going to be asking for. I took a consultative role within the organization, and it kind of de facto became the expert in the organization, and was tapped to lead both our AI adoption as an organization, but also how we were going to bring services and solutions to our customers and help them realize the benefits of these extremely powerful tools.
Yeah.
Probably in the last, I would say it's 8 months, our CEO approached me and said, and I think you need to take a bigger role here. I'm going to change your title from strategic solutions consultant to director of cloud strategy and AI enablement.
Mm,
And I joked with him. I'm like, this role didn't even exist 3 years ago.
right.
So here we are.
Awesome. So this is great. I've obviously had a couple guests on in the past to talk about AI and specifically the adoption and implementation of AI. So it's great to have you on to maybe give a little bit of an update onto what in the world is going on. Um, Maybe a first question for you is: Are you because as you mentioned, ChatGPT has been out for, I guess, closing in on 3 years now.
Yep.
Um, there was maybe there was definitely a lot of excitement to adopting AI in the early days, but I think with 3 years, there's maybe a little bit of time for companies to already start adopting these tools. Are you still seeing the same amount of enthusiasm, naivete around the technology, or are your clients like starting to get a little bit more sophisticated and know specifically what they want to adopt AI for?
It's a mixed bag. I would say there's a small percentage of the organizations that, like ourselves, Microsoft uses a term called frontier firms, companies that, and I'm not a big fan of it, but um, essentially what it means is they adopted the technology right out of the gate. They knew exactly how to work it into their organizations to get the most benefit. But I would say the vast majority of companies are still unsure of how to get started, where to get started, what are the risks associated with
Mm,
these tools, and but all they know is their peers are talking about it, and they feel like there's a lot of pressure from their executive teams and from their board of directors that we're supposed to be doing something with AI. And I really try to caution customers, "Well, that's not the reason to do this, right? Learn what the capabilities are, and then and also understand what are your business challenges. Don't just go out and use AI. Look for where there are pain points and struggles in the organization, and then say, well, where could AI fit into this puzzle to help solve for these problems? And we do a lot of, handholding with organizations. Our offerings really run the gamut.
mm,
My role is really kind of at the end user productivity level with Copilot, helping folks get generative AI into their daily workflows, up to the level of building agents, which can actually start to automate some of the capabilities of what they do. And then we also have a development and digital engineering data team that goes well beyond that, where they can build full stack solutions and custom, environments and all kinds of things. So there's a lot of variability out there with companies today, even still, and
right.
I think that's going to still be the case for a good 3 to 4 years at least.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, really interesting. One thing that you said there, it sounds like what you're experiencing is the push is coming from, top down. The C-suite executives are pushing this. Are you sensing or seeing any bottom-up approach where like the staff and the employees just spontaneously, because they're motivated, are using ChatGPT and they're like, "Hey, this is fantastic," and it pushes the executives to do this, or is it mostly the other way around that you're seeing?
It's a little bit of both. It depends on the size of the organization and what their industry is. What I will say is we do hear a lot of companies say, "We don't use AI." And that just kind of makes me laugh. But you don't formally use it, but I absolutely ensure you that there are pockets of your company that are using these tools because the value to risk ratio is too great to ignore it. And if you're not formally addressing that, then you don't actually have control over it. And that's really where there's some really big risk. And it's similar to shadow IT is, people going out and installing applications that the IT group doesn't know about. There's shadow AI, and you can't ignore it. And so there's a little bit of both. There's a little bit of folks kind of showing their business leaders, hey, look what I was able to do. And that kind of sets off the light bulb. And then there's that conversation that happens at the exec level where company X, who's our competitor, just introduced some service that includes AI, or they've established a chatbot on their website and now can do all kinds of self-service features for their customers. And there's this dread of, are we going to be left behind if we don't start adopting these things?
Yeah.
We're in trouble, right?
Yeah. So on that point, so ChatGPT's been around for 3 years. Obviously, AI has been around for a little bit longer than that.
Oh yeah.
But with this new hype wave and wave of adoption, are you already seeing companies that have, maybe not even adopted AI super early, but just in the last couple of years, are you seeing them start to kind of outcompete their competitors already, or is it still a little bit too soon to see that?
I think there's definitely been, depending on industries, some transformational shifts. If you look at a company like Walmart, they're a big player in their industry already, but they were very early adopters of this technology, and it now infuses every part of the business to the point where they have this kind of hub agent that controls all these other agents depending on which departments you work in. And if I am a competitor to Walmart, which it's tough to be a competitor to Walmart regardless, I absolutely think that this technology is disrupting many industries already. Typically, the bigger organizations, the enterprise, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. I think it's going to be a while before it is a major differentiator amongst this medium to small market businesses. But what I will tell you is, if you're a startup,
Mm,
you've got to be looking at this stuff right out of the gate, because it's got to be part of your DNA.
yeah.
You can't afford not to incorporating it into practically everything you do that is, routine, mundane, that can be simplified and automated. That's not to say that you're going to be, a completely AI company. There are definitely organizations out there who think they can run their entire organization on chatbots or bots and automation. I think that's a misplaced notion. So.
Mm, mm. Interesting. Um, what about some of these early adopters, to go back to them, like, because they've been around for a while, like, are there lessons that have filtered through to some of the other companies that are starting to adopt, and they're like, hey, we can learn from these guys' mistakes and, cut down that adoption curve?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be intentional.
Mm,
This is more so than probably any technology in the past. You can't let AI just organically take over an organization. You have to be very intentional. You have to think about where it's going to feed into workflows and work processes. And you have to also, because there's an investment here. It's not just, we can run all these things for free. When you get down to it, the most powerful tools are costly to use. And so you have to have a plan of, what are we going to use to address, what problems are we going to use to address with these tools, and how are we going to measure whether or not they're successful. And another big part of that is making sure you have a culture that supports it. And so one of the things is, it's not like giving someone a pen or a mouse or something and they just intuitively pick it up and, can figure it out in a couple of days.
mm, mm.
AI takes a very it takes time to actually absorb and understand what are the capabilities,
Yeah.
how to correctly prompt. There also has to be an acceptance, and so early on at ProArc, we also found that there were skeptics. There was a lot of, fear, uncertainty, and doubt FUD out there, and we had pockets of groups in the organization who could absolutely benefit from this technology that weren't latching onto it because they felt threatened by it. They felt like, well, if I use this, am I taking away from my abilities? Am I somehow being devalued by using AI? And quite honestly, we had to demonstrate that this is a human enabler, right? It's a human multiplier, not necessarily something that subtracts from your job. And in a lot of ways, when you can lean on and leverage AI to deal with, I call them the 3Ds, the drudgery, the things that are distracting and the things that are dull, you can focus on the creative stuff
Yeah.
and you can really focus on making big business impact where only humans can do those things.
Right. Yeah. An augmentation technology rather than a replacement technology. And I think that this is something that the first 100 episodes of the podcast were all focused on technological unemployment. So this was like a big topic and theme. But yeah, even with companies that I've supported in the past, there's always that fear of whether it's a robot or anything. It's just like, oh shit, like it's going to take over my job. Therefore, I have to get around it or sabotage it. There's like all these different interesting ways of thinking that comes from the employee base. Yeah, super interesting. I want to shift a little bit. So, we've talked about ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT every single day. I force my team to use one of these tools. Just get accustomed with it. I understand it's a kind of a force multiplier for your own workload. I'm not as familiar with Copilot. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but Copilot is used in larger organizations, right? Like I have a startup. It might not make sense to pay for a Copilot yet. Could you? And I think from the feedback I've gotten from the audience, they might be in a more similar boat. So if you could maybe just distinguish a little bit the differences between Copilot, ChatGPT, and then obviously where it's relevant.
Yeah. And so there are different flavors of Copilot. There's absolutely a Copilot that's a free version that anyone can use. You can install an app on your iOS or Android phone. It's something that you can use in your browser, and it has a lot of the similar capabilities of the free version of ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know this, but it's up until a few weeks ago, it was completely based on all of OpenAI's large language model.
Right.
So you were seeing a lot of the same types of capabilities within the tool as well. You then kind of move up a tier to if you have Microsoft 365 licenses, there's a version which is an enterprise version that's similar to the free version, but now you have the ability to protect data that you're putting into it. Microsoft's not going to train it on the models. It's not going to save the data, but it still has some limitations. And then there's the full paid version of Microsoft 365 Copilot. That is a $30 a month tool on top,
That's why it was so cheap.
top of it. Yeah. You say cheap, but a lot of people would say, well, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
On top of your M365 licensing. But what it has the capability of doing, which other types of chatbots don't have without a lot of exposing your data, is you're inside the Microsoft ecosystem. It has access to all of your communications, all of your emails, all of your documents, everything everybody works on, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, and it can reason over all of that data in real time. And it also has some really strict security parameters, which for an organization and any company that has compliance requirements is a must. Some of these companies attempt to do that. We also have a security practice, which also focuses on securing AI for an organization. And, we actually have a way to look at the scores of these other tools out there to see how they rate for privacy and security concerns. And Microsoft is, always usually at the very top of that. You can argue, and I've heard comments made that, Copilot's, it's the ability to answer things is not as good as some other tools. I think if you spend the time with it and you understand how to use it, those arguments don't really hold that much water. And the benefit to an organization as it relates to making sure that it protects your data and it also can see across all that data is very, very powerful without having to, upload a file, right? With ChatGPT, and I use it every single day too, because there are certain things that it's better at than Copilot. But I have to give it my data.
Yeah.
And every time I give it my data, I want to make sure I'm hitting that privacy or temporary chat mode. When you're in Copilot, I just literally point to the data and say, I use basically a forward slash. You reference a chat or a email or a file, and it could pull that in and reason over it with very little effort.
Super interesting. Yeah, we've talked about privacy and security multiple times on the podcast, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with you today. But
Understood.
I do want to touch a little bit more on this idea of like having all of the information in an organization fed into an AI, not in a privacy or security way, but in a like efficiency, like benefit aspect. Because to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it kind of seems like the future of businesses is each business is going to have, whether it's a Microsoft Copilot or their own proprietary AI, you're going to have your company's AI, and then you interface with that AI in order to search for files or understand different SOPs in your company or anything like that. So you're going to be interacting with that central AI pillar, if you will, which is going to facilitate like a tremendous amount of speed, efficiencies, and all these kinds of things within your organization. There's not really a question there, but maybe you can just comment on that.
Yeah, and because of that, you have to think about, as we approach this kind of vision of the future, where does my data sit today? And how am I going to connect this AI hub into those various systems? Also, how do we govern that data today? Governance is, it's a term that's being kicked around a lot. It's probably overused. I probably am guilty of that myself. But what it essentially means is that you have to make sure that your data is structured in a way where you're going to get better results. So here's an example. If we're using Copilot, we leave a lot of old data laying around that's out of date. It's only it's tough for the AI agents to be able to make a difference of, well, what data is actually the right data, true data, and which is the data that actually is data we should ignore. And so it's very important that you make sure that you're archiving data, you have good hygiene, you're creating good taxonomy with your data. But at the same time, for those third-party systems, developing integrations that can pull in other line of business applications. So, for instance, at ProArc right now, we're on a journey to begin establishing a data warehouse where we're plugging into our ticketing system and our CRM system and our finance system to pull all that data into a central data warehouse, the stuff that matters to us, so that we can kind of plug Copilot in on the back end to be able to pull more data out, right? So now we have this ability to reason and see across all of our data sets. And that's really where you want to be in a future state. Now, that's not simple and it's not easy, especially for smaller organizations. We have a digital engineering team that consists of over 100 people. So for us, it's a lot simpler than it is for other organizations. It will become simpler over time. Microsoft already has connectors, third-party connectors that are developed by the HubSpots of the world, or the Salesforces, or the ServiceNows, the ticketing PSA companies that can pull that data in. But the assumption is at some point there's going to be organizations that are building those connectors for you, or if you own one of those systems, you have to build a connector into these other AI environments. You have to build a connector that connects to ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot to facilitate making this easier. What I think we're going to go through is a period where these companies are going to want to put AI into their systems individually. Okay, we're going to put an AI in our system, and then the other system's going to have it. And what's going to happen is businesses are going to say, we don't want AI all over the place. We want it in one place. We want one interface that we interact with that communicates to all our data. So there's going to be kind of this settling out period where you're probably going to see AI built into a lot of systems, but eventually the larger company is going to say, that's nice, but I really need a more centralized interface.
Very interesting. So maybe you can also give us a sense of like the time frame for one of these projects, like a company that has no AI, maybe just using ChatGPT, a couple individuals in the company, to having one of these, the full stack of Copilot, where it's, understanding everything within your company. And I know the answer is it depends,
Yes, that's
but roughly.
yeah. If you look at a company that's kind of, I would call AI curious, and I'm going to probably relate this more to how quickly does it take to demonstrate value
Mm,
versus we could get to the promised land overnight, right? We have what's called a Smart Start program, and really it consists of a bunch of elements to help organizations get off the ground very quickly. And it consists of education, training, on prompting, on tool sets, on developing business cases, and tying that back to prompts and tools, and also making sure that their data estate is secure, making sure that things are set up so they're not introducing any risk once they turn AI on, but also giving them a long-term strategy of once they have those use cases, how do we show you and demonstrate, oh yeah, now it takes the help desk, they're 20% faster resolving cases. Our sales team can close deals 15% faster. Microsoft, again, their platform is pretty mature. They have a lot of this stuff built in right into Copilot where you can see these insights. I can see on a daily basis how many people are using these tools, what applications are they using them in, how often they're using them, for how long, and I can translate that to actual dollars and cents. And so I can demonstrate to my leadership team, for instance, in the last quarter, we have 100 licensed users. We had an assisted value of approximately $78,000 a month in assisted value from Copilot. So if you assume we're spending $3,000 a month on licenses, that's a net of $14,000, and only continues to get better as we continue to drive adoption. Now, to answer your question, how long does it take to get to that point? It takes years, right? In a very general answer, it takes years, but it takes, well, back to what I said before, it takes years of intention.
yeah.
And you got to make sure there's someone driving this from the inside. You can't just put this on someone else and say, okay, now this is your additional responsibility.
Right.
And that's kind of where we came as a company of, yeah, that's the role I took on. We need someone who this is their primary responsibility, that they need to look for things day in, day out of how we're going to continue to drive this technology to improve our business. Not only for us, but for our customers too.
Right. Okay. Super interesting. So I have a like a small and growing digital marketing agency, right? I do some other stuff, but that's one of the things that we're growing in right now. I'm right in the process of working with a couple of my core teammates to organize everything properly, like folders, SOPs, right? Like it's a startup, so of course it's chaotic. Things are working, but like we're realizing like, oh, like where's this file? Where like things like that. So over the last couple of weeks,
In that situation,
yeah, and
more ups or fall.
yeah. Oh, it's great. I'll just put it that way. But I also work with some larger clients that they've been running for several years. They're let's say some $5 million or $3 million a year, and
Yep.
their system, like everything's working, but it's chaos. Right, like the SOPs are kind of here and there. The admin files are kind of all over the place. Maybe because I'm a little bit biased and I'm in this situation right now with my own company, I could imagine that like this data governance, which I'm assuming this is connected to it, like you would need somebody to kind of properly organize the company, like have everything smooth before this layer of AI can be put on. Is that correct, or is the AI already a little bit more advanced to understand these problems?
In a perfect world, yes, right? But what you have to realize is the folks don't want to wait. And there's already shadow AI. So just like a lot of other waves of technology, it gets out there in early adopters, and then we have to kind of come back around and figure out how to fit it in. But being in the position you're in right now, I'd absolutely say, make sure your processes are solid, make sure you have good data governance, that things are organized in a way that there's a clear delineation of work processes are well documented. AI is going to benefits most the organizations that are well defined in their processes, right? It's the same thing as you hand AI to someone who uh, doesn't have higher order reasoning and thinking. It's very different, the output you'll see, than it is for someone who does have those types of skill sets. And we assume that somehow it's going to compensate for those shortcomings in our experiences and our skills. And that's why we really need to think about making sure that as we bring the next generation of children up through education, we can't in our public school systems and our college systems, we can't treat these things as though they're evil and that they don't have any place in the classroom. We need to be able to teach the skills because these are going to be part of their work life going forward. And it's accelerating at a rate that's almost out of control.
Yeah, I don't think we should go down the educational rabbit hole. That's a whole conversation in and of itself. I didn't bring up the my own company's situation without a reason. I think you kind of touched on it. I think the core idea is kind of garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you're not set up, and maybe this is also a message to other businesses out there that are listening, it's like, if you're not set up properly and just want to blast AI into your company and then you're frustrated with the results, I think it's, the onus is on you to organize things properly so that you can properly adopt AI. And maybe this is the, from what I'm hearing from guests and, from my other conversations as well, this seems to be a maturing in the market. Like there's an understanding. It's like, okay, I can't just use AI tomorrow. There has to be a little bit of a process to go through before it can be utilized.
Yeah, not in meaningful ways, right? Not in ways to transform your business. Because right now, many companies are in that point where we transcribe meetings and we take notes and we have it rewrite paragraphs in Word, and we can have it create a PowerPoint presentation. Those are great, and they're actually helping increase efficiency of our users and making work fun again. But if you really wanted to kind of take on the big heavy list of transforming your business or your industry, you absolutely need to have everything squared off and organized, and all your ducks in a row.
That's a really good point. Maybe you already answered this in one of the previous points, but so what you were just saying about transcribing notes and summaries of meetings, to me that's like a layer one of AI applications in a company. You're talking about a massive transformation. Is that the second layer, or is there a third and a fourth layer? Or are those really the two kind of things that we see today?
Well, it's kind of the second layer. It's taking entire processes and using AI as an assistant to those roles and personas, right? So think about support. Support's a real ripe area where someone could come into your website and they have questions, and you can have AI essentially field those questions and try and self-serve that individual without necessarily directing them to a person. Although ultimately, if it exceeds the capabilities of the agent, it would then move on to a human. That's kind of those are neat things that can help reduce cost, reduce efficiency, increase customer satisfaction. But then we get to kind of the higher order phase where you're having AI, they're making decisions about business, right? It's looking at the financials. It's generating analysis of your business and looking at the correlations of all the various systems and activities to give you powerful business intelligence. to make decisions. That's kind of the higher order capabilities of AI, which require tap-in and integration to your line of business applications, and requires that data be very sanitized, organized, and rationalized, right?
Mm. So is this kind of where the future's going once we get into these layers? The higher level thinking will be supported or augmented by AI in the businesses of tomorrow. Like I don't know what the time frame is here, three,
Yeah.
5 years or something.
Yeah, there are absolutely businesses in the financial sector that are doing it today. But for the mortals out there, it's it's coming, and there's lots of room out there for innovators to come up with ways to help companies get there. And my company is one of those, right? We work in the manufacturing space. We work with power generation facilities. So recently we had a scenario brought to us by a plant manager where they want to be able to tie into the sensors within that player to be able to, with AI and machine learning, to be able to help make better decisions about when to generate power and what are the effects of things like weather or the performance of their turbines and how that affects power generation output. So we're going to sit down with them, with our cloud and infrastructure team and our digital engineering teams, and kind of put a pilot together to show them what's possible, right? That's really what we'd like to do first. Before you make a huge investment to spend tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's prove this out as a concept, that we have all the technologies and skills to be able to put this together and demonstrate to you that yes, we can get this output, or we can, make you a stronger competitor and give you differentiation between yourself and your competitors, because you now have this really amazing capability that no one else has.
Very interesting. And then with regards to competition with companies that use AI and don't, I've heard the hype, excited points in other episodes. You seem like a pretty level-headed guy.
Try to be.
Yeah. What's the level of competitive advantage that companies are going to be like truly experiencing again in the future if we're looking 3 to 5 years out? Yeah.
I think it's now, honestly, I really do. I think about how these tools have affected my own output and capabilities. I would have to say that at least 30% I'm more efficient in what I do on a regular basis. Based on, I do a lot of analysis and writing. I do a lot of assessments for clients, and being able to pull all that data together and then have AI reason over it on the first draft, right? You always want a human in the loop. You always want someone checking it and reviewing it. But those capabilities, that makes us already more efficient and capable than our competitor if he doesn't do those things. So there are some immediate gains to have, and it's not probably enough to essentially disrupt certain markets right now, but for some it absolutely is. If you look at too in the medical industry, if I used to actually work for a hospital system here in Syracuse, New York, where I live. If I were now looking at a medical record system and that technology wasn't baked in to that medical record system for things like transcribing patient notes and reviewing charts and that kind of stuff, and there's a couple other hospital systems in my area that that's definitely going to be a big differentiator for me. So
Very interesting. I have 2, maybe 3 other questions here for you, Jim. So you mentioned very briefly, I believe, agents, right? So I've heard the agentic age is upon us, which maybe there's some truth to that. Is in your perspective, is that the next wave of AI that you see coming, and is it actually here? Is it as functional as you think it is? Like what are your perspectives on this?
It is here, and that's unfortunate for the folks who haven't started yet, because then they have to go. Well, I need to figure out the using a bot yet. So, and we already have multiple agents deployed in our organization. So I can give you some example. Is we do a lot of requests for proposals from customers, and that is a very, I don't know if you've ever done that.
Yeah, all the
It's a painful process.
yes.
Usually sucks up the hours and time of multiple individuals in the organization. And two RFPs are exactly the same. And what we found is, going back to data organization, it would take us an exceedingly long amount of time to essentially take a bet on whether we might win that deal. Sure. So we decided we needed to come up with an agent that could gather all of the relevant information that most RFPs required, also feed it information on our organization, give us some examples of previous RFPs that we've done, and also feed it some internet data, some web data about what are the qualities of a good RFP and how do you make yourself stand out. We created an instruction set for the agent, right? So think of an agent as really a repeatable chat. That's essentially what it is. You're doing a chat with ChatGPT, and you want to have it be able to repeat itself over and over again in a very standardized, formulaic way. That's all an agent is, really. And so we can now basically feed it the documents for the RFP. We can tell it, give it a brief, and say, create me an initial framework for this RFP to respond using all the resources you have available at your disposal. And the ability to respond has been cut in half for that. And so wherever you can find, and again, that goes back to the 3Ds, right? But it's draining work. It distracts us from our other work that pulls all these people in that need to be working on other things. And so we've been able to kind of use that and quickly find some efficiency gains. People can play with these tools right now. It doesn't matter if you're an individual or if you're working in an organization. These tools exist in ChatGPT. Like they call them GPTs there. I know there's other platforms that can kind of get to the autonomous level, which is kind of even more powerful. Copilot has the ability to create these no code. We actually do user group trainings internally every month. I just did one today. And we call the Build It Agent Workshop. And we told everybody how it works. So we gave them some canned scenarios. And in the 45 minutes of that workshop, we had folks from all over the business, different departments, different groups, different roles, create an agent and see what the power was and how they could apply this. And so now we have, half a dozen of these that are out there in our community being able to be used to improve the efficiency of our users.
Very interesting. I've actually been thinking about this question since roughly the middle of the conversation. So I'm gonna try and get it out, but it's probably not gonna be well formed. And it's kind of like a totality question, so maybe it's a perfect way to end. So we were talking about data governance and how organizations need to have their data properly aligned to implement and adopt AIs properly. There was another point that you mentioned that's slipping my mind, but it was a change in somebody's role. We're talking about this layer one where people are having their meeting summarized. You have chatbots on the website to answer initial questions. I guess the question that I'm asking is, we're seeing this transformation of what work is.
Yeah.
And I still think we're in early days of AI adoption. If we can use like social media as an example, right? It's been what, a decade, roughly, a little bit, 2008, 15, 16, 17 years. If you think about like marketing from, 2007 to now, you have freaking CEOs doing selfie videos and trying to get their information out there and their brand out there. Like that's a significant change or transformation in marketing. Are we seeing as a totality work going to shift at that level, like that amount of change within organizations that adopt AI over the next I hate to use the word like 10 years because that's super far out, but like, is this transformation going to be as large as what we've seen in other domains?
I feel very confident in saying, and I'm someone who doesn't like hyperbole, that this is probably the most significant transformational technology change in human history. And the pace of the change is has not abated.
Yeah.
If you follow the news around AI and how quickly these things are developing, we are, going to see some incredible transformations in, I think, even less than 10 years. If we go back, if we're standing here 10 years from now and, probably reviewing this conversation, there's probably a lot of things we're going to laugh about.
Right.
But you had no clue. Right. And it's very daunting for our organizations. And the thing to be aware of is, set your own timetable. Don't be caught up in the rat race. I think a lot of people also too, well, which tool is the best tool?
Yeah.
And I always say, yes, because I looked at VO. VO is the video tool from Google. That was the standard. That was the gold standard for a hot 2 months.
Yes. 2 months.
And now Sora 2 just came out, and you put them side by side, and it's laughable of what we thought was good and what now we feel is good. And so that's just going to continue to, the pace of change is going to continue to accelerate. There will be at some point where it plateaus, right? And where we kind of say, we've reached the capacity for us to accept this technology into our lives and how much we want it to take over our lives.
Right.
There are also going to be folks who decide to check out and go, I don't want to be part of this. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I have some of those in my own family. I was talking to my daughter who actually lives in Spain with her boyfriend, and she's very much a skeptic of this technology. Has some very strong opinions about what it means and what it forebodes for the future of humanity. But there is absolutely no doubt that we can't even imagine really what things are going to look like from, I would say, even 5 years from now.
Right.
Given the pace of change.
Yeah. Well, I would completely agree with you. I'll have to have you back on the podcast in 5 and 10 years to see what happens.
I'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And boy, we were wrong about everything.
Yeah. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'll have your website, ProArc, and your LinkedIn up on the show notes. Are there any other places that you want people to follow and reach out?
Yeah, that's probably a good start. If I could pitch that, I'm actually starting a Copilot AI user group in the upstate New York area. When I say upstate New York, I mean Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo. We've kind of have a deficit in community and in tech communities overall, and try to get some interest in this and help people, adapt to the change that's coming, and also create a community around how do we incorporate this stuff in our lives for fun too.
Right.
So, and if people are interested, I had some things posted on that and they want to join that group, that would be awesome.
Great. Awesome. Well, I'll throw that up on the show notes as well. Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for listening to this week's Future Tech and Foresight podcast. If you like what you've heard here, there are, of course, a number of ways that you can support the podcast. The best way would be to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or give a rating on Spotify, which you can find a step-by-step explanation for on the futuretechandforesight.com website. Alternatively, feel free to leave a comment either on the episode show notes or the YouTube channel where you can see video recordings of the interviews. And finally, if you are part of an organization that is aware of the disruptive and transformational impact that emerging and future technologies will bring and want to know more, please get in touch to hear about the strategic foresight services that we offer and how we can help future-proof your organization and take advantage of the phenomenal opportunities available to survive and thrive in the future.
A lot of future-shocked people and future-shocked institutions in our society are simply overwhelmed.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
Science fact is catching up to science fiction.
The first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make.
The only scarcity that will exist in the future is that which we decide to create ourselves as humans.
Within a 10-year design revolution, we can have all humanity living the highest standard of living anybody's ever known.
Progress is accelerating at an exponential pace, and it's going to reach a point where progress is so fast it's going to be a singularity.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Every single headline points to the birth pangs of a Type 1 civilization.